So welcome to our intermediate class today. And our theme this week is spring. It is now spring in the Northern Hemisphere. It seems like it's been a long time coming. And spring is a wonderful time of sort of everything awakening, including our own bodies and our own sort of psyches waking up from the winter hibernation. And I think in a distant history of human beings, we were tending more towards hibernating in winter, but now everything just kind of continues on. But there is still this feeling of renewal and newness as spring comes along, and this idea that we can kind of tap into that energy of being kind of contracted through the winter, being in our own spaces a little bit more. This year it's been in our own spaces a whole lot more, but that idea that we kind of hibernate a little bit, kind of go within ourselves, and then spring is a time to blossom and come forward into the world. And we'll use the breath, as we often do, as a kind of metaphor for the seasons, and just that idea of what wants to be born, what wants to be creatively inspired by the season. So we're going to start seated, so getting comfortable. So you can sit on a chair, you can sit on the floor, a cushion, couch, whatever's comfortable for you. Couch maybe not the best option, but if that's what you've got, that's fine. And the idea is that what you're sitting on is firm enough that you don't kind of sink into it, right? So a firm cushion or a folded blanket or even a block. You can sit on a block if you've got one handy. So some surface where you're able to feel those two bony protuberances at the base of your pelvis, the sit bones or ischial tuberosities, if you want the technical term. You want to feel those two bones making contact with whatever you're sitting on. And so from there, really feeling the sense of dropping into your pelvis without dropping your spine. Right? So you want to have the sense of feeling rooted. So those two bones make firm contact, and you can wiggle around until you feel that contact. If you like, you can close your eyes and kind of tune in. So when you're sitting right on the sit bones, the pelvis is neither tilted forward or tilted back, right? So if you imagine your pelvis like a bowl, which is what the word actually means, a bowl, you want to have the bowl upright. So those two bones at the bottom sort of create this base, and the bowl sits upright. So if you were to slump, the bowl would tip back, and if it were full of water, the water would spill out the back, right? And if you're to overarch your back, then the bowl would tip forward, the water would pour out. So we want to keep the bowl level, and that puts the spine into its natural curve. So when your pelvis is level, there's a little bit of an inward curve of your lower back. And then again, you can close your eyes if they're not closed. You don't have to. If you can visualize and kind of be present with your eyes open, that's fine as well. But bringing your attention down to those 2 points that make contact with the ground or your cushion or your chair. And almost feeling like those two bones could plug right into the earth and send roots down through the ground, through the floor, into the earth. And as those roots go down into the earth, they spread out and create a network of support. So the roots go down into the contracted earth. It's dark, it's fertile. And when a plant begins to grow, it first grows by sending roots down, sending a root down into the earth. So creating a kind of anchor. And so we create a kind of anchor in our bodies. And our bodies, minds, emotions are all tied together. So we're anchoring ourselves in this moment. Visualizing those roots spreading out, creating that anchor for you. And then you can imagine from there, once the roots are established, then the little stalk starts to make its way up through the ground. So you can imagine your spine growing out of the bowl of your pelvis, lifting up towards the crown of your head. Keep coming back to your roots, back to this sense of going into the earth, and at the same time, reaching and growing upwards. And the crown of your head would be like the crown of the tree or the blossom of the flower opening towards the sun. And this idea that we draw nourishment from our contracted state of going downward, right? Our hibernation state of winter, going deep into the earth. And we also draw our energy from lifting and expanding the summer energy of the flower drinking in the sun. So feeling those two energies, that dark, downward, contracted energy of hibernation, of winter, of getting ready, of anticipation, rooting down, and that corresponding opposite energy of lifting, that summer energy of reaching, opening to the sun, drinking in that nourishment. And we live in these two extremes and everything in between. And so today as we practice, we're going to do a lot of moving outward into that expansive sort of summery space, moving inward into that protective and grounded wintry space, and finding what wants to kind of be born from this energy, what wants to arise from this rising spring energy within us. So let's start with a little movement for the spine. So now as we tilt the pelvis forward, like the water would be spilling out the front, the heart lifts, the back arches. And then we're going to round the back so the pelvis tilts back as if the water would pour out the back. The head comes down, contracting into that contracted space, opening into the expansive space, breathing in, and then into that contracted inward space. So we create this sense of balance between expanding, being out into the world, contracting, drawing back into ourselves. And we all have our unique balance of how much we want to expand into the world, the extroverts of the world versus the introverts who spend more time in that inward space. So feeling yourself, finding your own unique rhythm and balance here. A few more breaths. Right, and then let's come back to the center. And we're going to stir the whole pot by stirring the spine, as if your spine were the wooden spoon, your pelvis the bowl, and stirring those two energies, the upward moving expansive energy, the downward moving contracted energy, and stirring them into the center. Circle the other way as well. Right, and then let's come back to the center. We'll lift the arms up with a breath in. And as you exhale, bring one hand across to the opposite thigh, the other hand to the floor behind you. Lift as you turn, and then inhale back to center. Opposite side, hand to the leg, the other hand behind. Lift as you turn. And a few more each direction. And one more to either side. Just warming up the spine, and then back to the center. Bring the hands down. Now, if you're sitting in a chair, it might be hands to your knees. If you're on the floor, you might bring your hands to the floor if that's comfortable for you. And you're going to, again, lift the heart, breathing in, and then press against the floor, the legs to round. And then breathing in, arching, exhale, rounding. And then coming back up to the center. Let's take both arms up. And again, feel your sit bones. You can whittle a bit till you really feel grounded there, plugging those bones into the ground. Take a breath in and reach up while you continue to anchor down. Good, exhale. Don't hold your breath here. So breathing here. Okay. And then we'll take one arm to the side and reach up and slightly over with the other, and then come back to the center, arm to the other side, reach up and slightly over, coming up to the center. One more time to each side, so supporting and lifting. Make sure you're breathing, don't worry about how you're breathing, but make sure you're breathing, and then come up to the center, and then really anchor your roots, and we're going to wave a little one way, and the other. So you don't want to lift a cheek or a sit bone. So keep rooted. Taking your weight off center, but staying rooted in the ground. Good. Come back to the center. We'll bring the arms down. Let's stretch the legs out. If you're sitting on the floor, give them a little shake. If you're not sitting on the floor, we're going to come down to the ground to all fours in a moment, so you can make your way there. And when you're ready, you can swing your legs around and come on to hands and knees. So same kind of idea here. The idea of expanding. So we're going to bend the elbows slightly, just keep the elbows soft, shoulders back, lift the tail, lift the heart, and feel that expansion, the sun expanding in the heart. And then as you exhale, rounding, and you can move to child's pose if that's comfortable for you, head coming down, moving into that nice little dark space, and then coming back, expanding. So the inhale expands, the exhale contracts. There's a little pause between the inhale and exhale, and you can notice those pauses, holding that expansive energy, exhale, holding that contracted inward energy, and moving between the two. And that's what we do as humans. Right? There's a lot of pressure in our culture to be kind of extroverted and ready to kind of go at any moment, but we need that inward contraction, that space of being just with ourselves. So if you're comfortable in child's pose, you can come into child's pose, and we'll pause here for a few breaths. So your head can rest on your hands or on the ground or whatever is comfortable for you. And coming into this place of quiet, dark contraction. Tune into your breath, gently expanding with your inhale, softening and dropping in a little more with your exhale. And then from this place of contraction, as long as it's comfortable for you, you're going to roll upright. You walk up with your hands, uncurl your spine to come to sit on your heels. Now, if you're not comfortable sitting right down on your heels, then come up off your heels and come into the high kneeling position. And we'll move into a kneeling sun salutation, which is this beautiful weaving back and forth of the expansion and contraction, expansion and contraction. So starting either in the high kneeling or low kneeling position, wherever you're comfortable. We'll inhale, lift the heart, and find that beautiful expansion, and then exhale into contraction, into that small, quiet space, child's pose. And then up to all fours, letting the heart shine forward. And then toes tuck under, use your core. So we're going to draw the belly up, rounding the back, and let that lift you into your downward dog. Let your head release. We'll spend a few breaths here, so maybe walking on the spot. You're looking back toward your knees, not forward toward your hands, so that way the neck can relax. And that feeling of going inward, really tuning in. And then from your downward dog, lowering the knees, coming back into that openness of the heart, lifting toward the sun. Exhale, moving into child's pose, contracting darkness. Inhale, emerging up out of the earth into that beautiful opening towards the sun. And then exhale back to wherever you started, high or low kneeling, whatever position is good for you. So let's try that again. Inhaling, lifting the heart, feeling that beautiful expansion, summery energy. Exhale into the darkness, into that contracted place of winter. Inhale, emerging, heart lifting toward the sun, and then exhale, going back into downward dog, letting the head release, looking back toward the knees. Spending a few breaths here. Again, you could walk on the spot if that helps to open things up for you. And when you're ready, back to all fours. Breathing in, opening the heart. Exhale, child's pose. Well, let's spend a couple more breaths in child's pose, whatever version is comfortable for you. Okay, and then we'll emerge again, lifting all the way up, finding a lift in the heart. Right, and then back to sit on the heels. Or again, you can stay upright, up off your heels if that's better for you. Okay, so we'll continue on. We're going to add a few variations as we go through now. So inhale and lifting. Exhale, let's stay up on the knees and bring the hands down. And you're going to place your hands on your hips and press down as if you're really anchoring down through your knees and through the tops of your feet. And then we're going to start to lift the heart, draw the elbows back. You don't want to push your hips forward and collapse your lower back. So keeping the hands on the hips, that downward pressure, and then it's the heart that lifts as if a string is attached to the sun and it's lifting the heart toward the sun. Use your core to stabilize here. You can look up. I would advise not to let your head fall back between your shoulders. Right, and then let's come back to neutral. Release the arms, take a breath in and lift. And then exhale, child's pose. When you come to child's pose, stay for a few breaths and let your hips rock a little side to side. Rocking the hips, releasing the lower back. Okay, and then coming to the center, come up to all fours, breathing in. Heart lifting, and again, tuck your toes under. Think about the core lifting towards the ceiling as you lift your knees. Let your head come down, looking back towards your knees. And again, if it feels good, walk on the spot. Right, from here, transfer your weight to one foot. Bring the other knee in close to your chest. And then slowly extend that leg back behind you. And lift it straight back so both hip bones are still pointing at the ground. And then release that leg. And then bring the other knee in. And stretch it out. Take a couple of breaths here. And release that foot. Back to all fours, breathing in. Heart lifting. Exhale, child's pose. Inhale, lift all the way up. Right. And exhale back to wherever you started. Okay. So we'll keep moving and keep sort of adding some variations in here. So breathing in, lift up. Good. Exhale, bring your arms down to your sides. Now we're going to come back into this variation of camel pose, hands on the hips. Or if you like, you can bring your hands and interlace them behind your back now. And then again, heart lifts. We're not pushing the hips forward. So hips stay over the knees, shoulders move back, heart lifts. Good. Feel that connection of your heart reaching for the sun beaming down on your heart. And then we'll lift the arms, breathing in. Exhale, moving right down to child's pose. Again, you can pause here for a few breaths. Let your hips rock a little side to side, releasing the lower back. Okay, and then let's come up to all fours. From all fours, walk your hands about a handprint forward of where they are now, so that when you bring your body forward over your arms, your your shoulders line up over your wrists. So your knees are still on the ground, and we're going to roll down. Bend your elbows, let your thighs, your belly, your chest, and your forehead come to the ground. And then if you need to shift so that you're on your back, go ahead. And then from here, let your arms come back down beside you. Palms face the ceiling. We're going to gently engage the buttocks, press down with the hips, engage the thighs. And as you inhale, keep your hands on the ground, lift your chest and head, draw the shoulders back, and then exhale, lower down. Let your shoulders relax toward the ground as you come down. As you press down into the hips and lift, let the shoulders lift and roll back and down towards your hips. Exhale, release. Inhale, let the heart shine forward as it lifts. Exhale, moving back into that contracted space. Again. All right, as you come down this time, you'll walk your hands back up beside the rib cage. Press into your palms, come back to all fours. Tuck your toes under, lift up to downward dog. Again, a few breaths here. If you want, you can walk on the spot if that feels good for you. Okay, and then knees down, inhale, heart shines forward, exhale, child's pose. From child's pose, we'll lift straight up to high kneeling. And exhale to release back to wherever it was that you started. Okay, so we'll keep going, keep adjusting as we go. Breathing in, lifting up. Exhale, arms down to your sides. Here you have the option, either hands to hips, hands interlaced behind your back, or if it's available to you and you are comfortable with the camel pose, you could reach back for your heels. So the easier way to do it is to lift up, tuck your toes under so that your heels are a little closer, and then reaching back. This is only if this is a comfortable position for you. The other options, hands to the hips or arms back. So find the version of camel that you can work with here. Good. And then when you're ready, coming up with the breath in. Exhale, child's pose. As you come to child's pose again, spend a few breaths here. You can rock your hips side to side if that helps you to release the spine. And coming up to all fours. Again, you can walk your hands a little bit forward, so when you come to your kneeling plank, Your wrists are underneath your shoulders and then rolling down. Taking the arms back. Bend your knees this time and flex your feet so that the soles of your feet are pointing at the ceiling. And we're going to turn the palms to face each other as we lift the arms and the chest down. So pressing down with your hips and thighs, lift the chest, lift the head, lift the arms, and squeeze the hands in towards each other. Good. Exhale, release. Again, lift. Shoulder blades move back and down. Squeezing the arms in as you lift them. And release. Good. Again, press down with your hips. Lift up with the chest, head and arms. Squeeze and hold for a couple of breaths. Let's release. You can come down. In fact, you can leave the knees bent here and go a little side to side to release the low back here after the back bend. Great. And then coming back to the center, stretch the legs back, bring the hands to the floor beside your rib cage. Come up to all fours. And again, we'll move into downward dog. So tucking your toes under. Use your core. So as you exhale, the belly starts to lift, and let that lift your body up into downward dog, spending a few breaths here. As you're ready, down to all fours, breathing in, letting the heart lift, and then exhale, rounding, going into that contracted space. Inhale, lifting out of that contracted space like you're growing up toward the sun. And exhale to come back to where we started. Great. So we'll change it up a little bit this time. Coming up with the breath in. Exhaling to child's pose. Inhale, all fours. So we're going to move into downward dog and then step forward to lunge. So if you need your blocks under your hands to do that, or if you want to come forward to lunge from all fours, that's fine as well. If you're coming into downward dog, we'll come in to the pose together. Pause here. Take one leg, stretch it back behind you. Take a breath in. You can come up onto the toes of the foot that's on the ground to give you a little more space. Exhale, squeeze that leg in, round your back, and step it forward as best you can between your hands. Great. So here in lunge, we're going to draw the back hip a little forward, draw the forward hip a little back, squeezing through the inner thighs and hips to stabilize the pose, and then bring your hands up onto your front knee. Good, so let's pause here and really feel the stability and sturdiness in the legs. Right, for those of you who want a little more, you can come a little more upright, bringing the upper body over your hips and extending the arms overhead. Find a little lift in the heart here. Shoulder blades draw down. Keep squeezing through the legs. Lifting the heart. You can use a little bit of engagement in your core so that the lower back is stable. Good, and then let's bring the hands down and we'll step back to downward dog. Take a breath or two in downward dog, and then we'll switch sides for lunge. So however you want to get there. If you're coming from downward dog, you're going to come up onto the tippy toes of the standing leg. As you exhale, bring that knee through, and you can kind of spring it forward as close to between your hands as possible. So again, stabilizing here. So this front hip moves back a little bit. The back hip moves forward a bit. You're engaging through the thighs and buttocks. Stabilizing the pose, maybe lifting up, hands to front knee. Find your stability there. And then as you come upright, think about the pelvis tilting back and down, arms lifting, heart lifting, shoulder blades drawing down, and breathe. Good, and then moving forward. This time we're going to step forward. So bring both feet to your hands, head down, soften your knees. Spend a couple of breaths here. If you prefer, you can bring your elbows up onto your thighs, come into a less intense forward bend with support, whatever works for you. Or you can let your arms dangle. And then release your arms if you're holding them. Bend your knees even more and slowly uncurl. Feel like you're a little baby plant uncurling up out of the earth. Oh, it's really warm in front of the fire today, which is nice. So coming to mountain pose. So feeling your feet underneath your hips, your heels in particular, lining up underneath your sit bones. And then feel how your legs almost become the roots, right? So your sit bones dropping down as if they could send roots down through your legs, through your heels, into the earth again. Your upper body like the trunk of the tree, growing up out of the earth. And the crown of your head like a beautiful blossom opening toward the sun. So see if you can, if you're comfortable closing your eyes, standing, you can close your eyes. If that makes you feel a little bit like you might lose your balance, keep them open. But see if you can feel these two different energies moving. Downward into the earth, upward away from the earth toward the sun. Right, and so we're going to next do a little bit of a energizing breath practice, and it's called Breath of Joy, but it uses what's called krama, which is steps. So the inhale is going to happen in 3 different steps. So you basically breathe in 1/3 of your capacity, your comfortable capacity, and then you pause for a split second, breathe in the second third, and then the third third. So, and then the exhale is all in one go. So it's all the way out. So inhale, 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 exhale. So try that. Great. So hopefully you've got that 3-step inhale, full exhale. We're going to add some movement with the arms. So the first third, your arms come out to the front. Second third, out to the sides. Third third, overhead. And exhale all the way down. So let's try that. Inhale, 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 exhale. Inhale, 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 exhale. One more like that. And then we're going to add a forward bend. So on the exhale, we'll bend forward. And the inhale, you'll come up, out, up, and then all the way forward. So let's try that. So inhale, 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 exhale. Inhale, 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 exhale. Again. Last one. Let's stay in that forward bend for a few breaths. Again, any variation that suits you. And then let's bring the hands up onto the knees. Bend the knees a little bit. Good. And a little cat-cow here. So inhale, arching. You can move the legs slightly straighter to feel some stretch there. And then exhale, rounding. So Inhale, arch. Exhale, round. Inhale, expansion. Exhale, contraction. Good, one more. And then next inhale, lift all the way up. And exhale to release. Great. So let's move into the more traditional sun salutation, the from standing. And again, we'll go from that position into some variations. So you want to be in the front sort of third of your mat or so, a little bit of room in front of you, lots of room behind you. And let's come back to that feeling of deeply going into the earth. Feel your roots go down. Feel your heart lift, the crown expand and open. And feel how you are this perfect conduit between the earth and the heavens. We are nature. We're not separate. We are the earth, the water. We're the fire of the sun and the wind that blows through us. And when we live in our houses with our artificial heat and air conditioning, sometimes we lose that connection to nature. We forget that we are nature. So feeling that connection now as best you're able. Feel your roots go down. Let's bring the hands together at the heart. And then from that heart center, lifting, expanding as you inhale. Softening your knees, exhale, go forward and in. Let's pause in that forward bend for a few breaths to feel the contrast. And then from here, you can take one leg, step back into lunge. You can leave your hands on the ground, or if you want a little more, lift all the way up in one big breath in. And then with one big breath out, bringing the hands down and step back to downward dog. Take a couple of breaths in downward dog. And then we'll lower the knees, breathing in, letting the heart shine forward as the tail lifts. Exhale, child's pose. A couple of breaths in child's pose, in that deeply inner focused pose. And then emerging. Imagine yourself emerging slowly into all fours, arching back into downward dog. Whichever leg you stepped back with, you're going to step forward with the same leg. So you're doing lunge on the other side. You can lift the leg if you like and swing it through, or however you want to get there. Again, you can stay with the hands on the ground or stabilizing the hips. Inhale to lift all the way up in one smooth as you can motion, and then back down and step forward on the same exhale. Hands to shins or knees. Inhale and lengthen. Exhale, release. Take a couple of breaths in this forward bend. See if you can relax your neck even more. Soften your knees, let your arms hang. And then reaching to the sides, coming all the way up. Big breath in. Bring your palms together like you could reach for a little piece of the sun. Exhale, bring it into your heart. Find your roots. Feel your sit bones connected to your heels, connected to the earth. Roots going down deeply into the earth. That contracted, anchored place. And then feel the expansion, the lift in the heart, the lift in the crown of the head. The growing up and out into the world, the summer energy. And then from here, lifting the hands up. And as if you could ask the sun to meet the earth as you come forward, bringing the sun to the earth. And then inhale, hands to shins or knees, lifting the heart. Exhale, fold forward. Let's take a couple of breaths here. And then stepping back. Doesn't matter which foot, just remember which so you can step forward with the same foot later. Again, inhale, lifting all the way up. Exhale, come forward. If you need extra breaths in there, please take them. Come back to downward dog. From downward dog, we'll lower the knees down. And again, you want to make sure your hands are a little bit forward of your shoulders. So when you let your hips come down into a kneeling plank, shoulders over the wrists, then bend the elbows and roll down to the ground. Arms back by your legs. Bend the knees. Flex your feet, so bottoms of your feet point at the ceiling. Press down with your hips, down with your thighs. Maybe the knees start to lift a little as you lift the chest, head and arms, squeezing in with the shoulders. Breathing here. Good. Releasing the hands, come to the ground by the rib cage. Press into your palms. Lift to all fours and make your way back to child's pose for a few breaths. Again, you can swing the hips a little bit side to side, swing if that feels good for you. Otherwise, just stationary and breathe. Great. From this kneeling position, let's come all the way up to high kneeling. Great. And then back to child's pose. Exhaling, coming back. Inhale, all fours. Exhale, downward dog. So whichever foot stepped back earlier, that foot's going to step forward. You can swing it back first if that's helpful. Again, you have the option to lift up into high lunge or stay low if you prefer. Coming up with a breath in, hands down and step forward as you exhale, releasing your head. And then inhale, hands to shins. Exhale, soften and fold forward. Take a couple breaths here. Make sure your knees are soft. They're not straight here. Chest can even rest on the thighs if that's available to you. And then we'll come all the way up. Breathing in. Hands come together like we're inviting the sun from the sky into the heart. Pausing there. Feel your roots. And then feel the lifting, expansion, and opening of your upper body. So do one more sun salutation. Taking a breath in, lifting the sun from your heart. Expanding it all around, offering it to the earth. And then inhale, lifting the heart again as you bring the hands to the shins, and then exhale to release. Whichever leg you stepped back with last time, step back with the other leg this time. Again, option to lift and lunge. Breathing in as you lift, breathing out as the arms come down and step back to downward dog. Inhale, all fours. Please take extra breaths if I'm breathing too slowly or not enough for you. Good, and then we'll walk the hands forward. Let the hips come forward, bend the elbows, roll to the ground, or however you want to get there. The arms come back by your sides. Bend your knees, flex your feet. Now, you can do this pose exactly as we did it the last time around, just pressing down to slightly lift the knees, drawing the arms back, or if it's available to you, you can reach back and take your ankles or the tops of your feet. This is quite advanced, so please know that if this is not available to you, it's totally fine. And if you've reached back, you're going to draw the legs back to lift the chest. Resist a little bit forward with the shoulders. So you're stringing a bow here. This is a bow pose. So it could be hands holding the ankles or not. Breathing. And when you're ready, slowly release. Again, you can bend, keep the knees bent and rock a little side to side if that feels good for you. Coming back to the center, stretching the legs out, hands to the floor beside your rib cage, pushing into the ground to lift up. And again, coming to child's pose. And again, you can spend some time here. This is our last sun salutations. You can rock a little side to side or just hang out and breathe, feeling the breath moving into the constricted areas. Maybe one more breath here. And then when you're ready, you'll come back to all fours, back to downward dog. Whichever leg you stepped back with, you're going to step forward with that leg. So again, you can stretch it back if you like, or however you want to get there. You're squaring the hips. You want to feel engaged through the hips and the thighs, possibly lifting up if that feels right for you. Breath in as you lift. Exhale, come forward and step forward if you can in one breath. Otherwise, whatever it takes. And then hands to shins, lengthen. Exhale, release and fold forward, bend your knees, soften your whole spine. Take a couple of breaths here. And then we'll come all the way up, lifting with a long, strong spine. Arms come up overhead. Hands together, drawing down to the heart. Take a few breaths, reconnect with the earth through your roots. Reconnect to the expansiveness of the sun through the crown of your head. And the feeling of being drawn in two directions. When you're ready, release the hands. And we're going to make our way to the ground, so you can get there however you like. Just take your time. And when you first come to lie down, we'll just take a couple of minutes, maybe a minute or two. Hands on the body. The knees can be bent and falling together, so there's no effort here. Just taking a moment to let your breath settle, to let your body settle, to feel the support of the earth beneath you. That the earth is a contractive kind of force. It symbolizes that going inward, downward, the winter, the exhale. So take a few breaths here where you focus on the exhale, let go of tension so that you can really feel the earth support you. Let the breath be absolutely effortless, natural, as effortless as possible. And we're not straining or asking the breath for anything in particular, just to breathe. Take a moment to notice what happens to you when you rest here like this. So does your mind kind of go to what's next and, let's get on with it? Or does your mind go to, this is nice, I want to stay here forever? Or are you somewhere in between? This is nice, I'm comfortable here, I'm relaxed here, I don't need to know what's next, and I don't need to hold on to this. So just notice, there's no judgment. It's really, how does your system relate to the idea of taking a pause, taking a rest? So take a few more breaths here to inquire. Let's move the hands down now to the floor beside the hips and bring the feet in so that they're underneath the knees, about hip distance apart, and the knees are the same distance apart. So we're no longer letting the knees rest together. So now we're going to lift the arms straight up. You can bend the elbows if that's better for your shoulders, bringing the hands maybe to the ground, maybe not, whatever works for you. And then back down to the floor beside you. So as you breathe in, feel a little bit of expansion around the heart, little arch that naturally happens in the back. As you exhale, bring the hands down, press gently into your feet to bring as much of your spine to the ground as possible. And then reverse. Inhale, let the back arch. You can exaggerate that a little bit with your intention if you like, and then as the arms come down, you're pressing into the feet, lower back, and spine on the ground. So inhale, arching as the arms lift. It will happen naturally. Again, you can exaggerate if you like. And again, it'll happen naturally that the back flattens as you bring the arms down. You can press into the feet for a little more exaggerated flattening. A couple more like that. Next time your arms are coming down, bring one knee into your chest. Holding that knee for a few breaths. If you like, you can extend the other leg, pressing it heel down, toes up, heel pressing away from the hip as you gently squeeze in with the other leg. You can hold the leg that's into the chest behind the knee or over the shin, whatever you like. If you want a little more stretch here, you can extend that leg that's in toward your chest up toward the ceiling. And think about leveling your hips. So the hip of the lifted leg tends to want to lift towards the shoulder on that side. So think about that sit bone of the upper leg reaching down towards the other foot that's on the ground. Right. And then keeping that leg up in the air, if you've chosen to lift it, take the arms overhead and reach up through the fingers, through the heels, down through the back of the hips, down through the back of the head. Good. Imagine if your foot that's up in the air were actually on the ground, you'd be in a very extended version of Warrior 3. So much easier to do lying down. Let's bring the knee back into the chest, squeeze in, and then we'll bring that foot to the floor. Bend the other knee, and bring both knees in for a moment. Just give a little squeeze. Right, and then keeping the other knee in close to your body, let the other foot come to the floor. And again, you could extend the leg out on the ground, heel down, toes pointing up. Breathing here. Softening all around the hip joint. And again, if you want more, you can raise the leg that's in towards your body, heel pointing toward the ceiling. It's absolutely fine to have that leg bent. If it feels like too much to hold the leg, you can let go and let it be a little further away from your body so there's less stretch. And then again, think about that sit bone that's on the raised leg, reaching down towards the opposite foot. And then if you like, you can extend the arms overhead and reach out through both feet, both fingers, all 10 fingers, 8 fingers, 10 fingers, 8 fingers and thumbs, reaching out. Good, and then bringing that knee back in, giving a little squeeze, and let's release that foot to the floor, bend both knees. And pausing here, we're going to just shift the knees a little bit side to side. So we're massaging just the sacrum, the back of the hips on the ground, just a little rocking. Okay, and then let's come back to the center. We'll bring the arms to the ground. Again, line your heels up so that they're underneath your knees. And we'll work with bridge pose. So with bridge, starting by pressing down with the feet, and then we'll lift the hips. And if you like, you can also take the arms overhead to the floor behind you at the same time. That's optional. And then lowering the hips, and if you've brought the arms up, you'll bring the arms down as well. So inhaling, lifting. If you're coordinating breath, that's not required, just optional. And then you'll exhale as you lower. Next time you come down, stay down, because we're going to all move together for at least the next round, adding on this time. So pressing into the feet, inhale, lift the arms, lift the hips. We're going to leave the arms overhead. You might need to bend them and move them to the sides to be comfortable as you lower your hips down. And then when you get to the ground with your hips, you're going to pause there, take a breath in. And then as you exhale, bring your knees to your chest, bring your hands to your knees, give a little squeeze in. And then legs toward the ceiling, arms either out to the sides or overhead, breathing in. And then as you exhale, arms and legs coming back to where you started, feet on the floor, arms on the ground beside your hips. So we'll do that again. So when you're ready, breathing in, pressing into the feet, lifting the arms, lifting the hips. As long as it's comfortable for you, leave the arms overhead as you lower the hips down. Stay there and take a breath in. Exhale, use your core. Press your lower back to the ground, bring your knees in, bring your hands to your knees, give a little squeeze at the end of your exhale, and then inhale to extend the arms and legs. And then exhale back to your starting position. And one more time like that. Inhale, lifting arms, lifting hips. Exhale, leave the arms there as long as it's comfortable and lower your hips. Stay there and breathe in. Exhale, use your core, bring your lower back to the ground and knees to chest, hands to knees, squeezing in. And then extend arms and legs. Arms overhead or to the sides, legs to the ceiling, and then exhale, coming back to where we started. So let's bring both knees into the chest. You can take your hands to your knees, or you can interlace your fingers over your knees, or if it's available to you, you can take your wrists or your elbows over your knees. So you want to come into a small little ball, like you're a little seed under the earth, just waiting for winter to end so that you can expand into the world. You can rock a little bit as you feel yourself waking up. You might even take a moment to think or to contemplate or to allow to arise into your awareness. What would like to be birthed or born or grow in your own creativity right now? Is there a project or something that you'd like to explore as spring dawns? And then with the energy of expanding out into the world, you can lift the arms and legs, give them a shake, like you're shaking off the winter stiffness, the winter inwardness, contraction. You're just shaking it out. Right, and then when you're ready, letting the knees come in and down to the floor. You can stretch out along the ground, arms up or to the sides, legs stretching out, growing along. Excuse me. And then as you're ready, bringing the arms down and taking a moment to get comfortable for Shavasana. So If you want to add some clothing or some props to be more comfortable, or a blanket, if you prefer to sit, you can always come to sit instead. But take your time to get yourself set up in a way that you're as comfortable as possible. And of course, if there's any other movement that your body is craving before it wants to come to stillness, take your time. And then as you get yourself settled again, come back to your breath. Come back to the easeful inhale and exhale without effort. And whether you're sitting or lying down, be aware of which parts of your body make contact with the earth. And as you exhale, allow yourself to soften and melt down toward the earth. So if you're sitting, it would be your sit bones, maybe soles of your feet if you're in a chair, or the sides of the shins, whatever is making contact with the ground. And if you're on your back, feel the back of your body, where your spine meets the ground, where it lifts away from the ground. And soften into that support. Relax into the support of the ground. The ground literally has your back here. And feel how even as the ground supports your back, if you're lying, that the front of the body has lots of room and space to expand and to open. And if you're seated, the base of your seated pose is supported by the ground, but there's a lifting and a lengthening through the upper body, that lifting rebound action from the earth. So you can even bring your awareness to these two dual energies, the energy on your exhale of dropping into the earth and relaxing, and the energy of expansion and gently opening and lifting with the inhale. So take a few breaths with this awareness of the two energies, summer and winter, corresponding to the inhale and exhale. And you might notice those little brief pauses between the breaths. So as summer turns to winter, there's this pause like fall, and as winter turns to summer, there's this pause like the spring. It's almost like we encompass the seasons with each breath, and we allow ourselves the grace to expand and contract with life, not resisting, not holding on to summer or pushing away winter, but allowing yourself to feel and to breathe with all of the seasons. Softening the large muscles of the body, the jaw, the shoulders, the arms and hands. Softening and relaxing the torso. Releasing and letting go around the belly and lower back, the hips and thighs. Releasing the knees, the shins, the calves, ankles, your feet all the way to your toes. Dropping down, letting go, keeping that little sense of expansion that comes with each inhalation. And as you rest and enjoy these alternating energies of contraction and expansion with your breath, I'll share with you a chant that talks about the growing herbs in the garden, in the wilderness actually, in the forest in this chant, and how those herbs are nourished by the earth, and in this chant nourished also by the moon, but it could be the sun. And so all of those forces coming together to nourish the plants, to nourish our human bodies that really are made of the exact same stuff as the plants. We're just a little less stationary, a little more able to move around. Oshadhaya sambadhante somena saharaknya Oshadhaya sambadhante somena saharaknya Oshadhaya sambadhante somena saharaknya Let your attention now move to the expansive phase of the breath, the phase that moves towards spring and summer and opening. Let your inhalation deepen and expand you a little bit more. Never straining, but feeling the fullness of the breath. Of course, you're exhaling every breath cycle as well. But let your focus be on that energizing, expansive inhalation. You can feel yourself start to be inspired to move, maybe wiggling your fingers and toes to begin with, and then stretching and moving in any way that would feel good. As always, if you want to stay in Shavasana or seated meditation and do a little more integration, a little more meditation, you're welcome. And if you're ready to move on with your day, you can start to move and stretch your body. Eventually rolling onto your side, pausing and taking your time when you're ready to come back to sit. Bringing your palms together. And taking with you this idea of expanding into spring while keeping our roots firmly planted in the earth, feeling the nourishment of the earth, and how spending time focused inwardly allows us to be more expansive and more open to the world around us. Namaste.